It takes a lot for me to talk about this, but being this is the first real video on my channel, I have a confession. So I'm an artist, or at least I've called myself an artist for my whole life. In fact, I took it so seriously that I even went to art school and went into a whole bunch of debt just so I could make this my craft, my trade, potentially for the rest of my life. But I've faltered. I'm 34. In the last 6 years of my life, I've made next to no art. I went into a slump. I made maybe 1, 2, 3 arts per year, and let me tell you, they were small arts. And I didn't really like what I was doing. I didn't like what I accomplished because I really didn't even know where I was going with this anymore. And eventually kind of just lost sight of it. And there's a lot of factors that went into that, and some of them I'm ashamed to admit, but here we are. Um, things like a steady job contributed to it. Um, not taking care of myself contributed to it. Frankly, drinking a lot contributed to it. I simply don't make artwork or do anything um, remotely useful when I drink, and the recovery from it always took away from it. Relationships with other people can take away from your artwork, and it did with mine. Um, my personal inner conflicts contributed to me not making as much artwork as I once did. But addressing all of those things, I was able to come out of a slump. And now I can honestly say I'm painting again. In fact, I had quit painting for over 10 years, only to come back to it now and just realize how in love with it I had always been. And having some of the clarity that I've gotten now has contributed to that art tremendously. But I've also had to deal with some inner demons, inner conflict, as I said before. And I started to look at old artwork that I had done in the past. In fact, I actually recently got to go back to my hometown where my parents' house is, and my life's work was stored in their basement. And because I've gotten it together with a lot of things, including the drinking, I was able to actually plan out going and getting packaging material and figuring out how I was going to send all this artwork back to myself. And I'm happy to say, sitting here today, that I have a bunch of artwork here with me. It's like having old friends back with me. It feels like part of my soul is back with me, like a weird Horcrux Harry Potter scenario. Um, but I also got to look at different stages in my life as a creator, and I'm going to make more videos about that soon. But one thing that I found in the basement that I had forgotten about was I actually had 4 prints of paintings that a somewhat distant relative of mine had made. My grandparents died in the last few years, and I inherited some things from them, thankfully. And these 4 prints were a part of it. And they're by my grandmother Ruby's cousin, and his name is Len Erickson. I don't know what that would make him to me, but he is a part of my bigger family tree. And on the back of one of these prints was a handwritten note, I assume from an older person that knew my grandmother personally, because it said, "These are 4 paintings done by Ruby's cousin, Len Erickson, who died as a young man." No other information given than that, and my living relatives that I have asked so far know nothing about him. I heard that he might have possibly have died from Parkinson's disease. When I wanted to shoot pictures of these prints in preparation for this video, they were under glass in frames. And I didn't want to shoot it because the shine of the glass. So I had to take them out of their frames. And inside one of them, it looks like this cutout piece of a folder inside one of the frames. And it said, "A thing for Len." And it had a picture of him on there too. And I was surprised that somebody had the forethought to stick that in there. And I'll read it too. But the fact of the matter is, he loved painting, but he also had to work a job. He had like 6 kids. And through his art, he was able to move up in his company and do, you know, art related things. He was in the art department for this company called Univac that made computer parts, I assume. I don't know tons about the company. In fact, it was rather hard to find really much information about Len or his work. All I have is these 4 prints, and inside of this little folder, if you open it, it actually has a newspaper article. I'll just go get it. Hold on. All right. So this is the actual like cutout. When I first pulled it out, this is what it looked like, and I didn't realize that it's actually like cut along the top, and then it's got this little fold here, and on the inside of this is just an article by Oliver Towne, which is a pseudonym I found out by a prominent columnist for the St. Paul Dispatch. It's gone. The newspaper's gone by different names over the years, but he has like over like 40 years of writing these articles about interesting people in St. Paul. And Len Erickson was one of them. And it's kind of a sad story, but I'll read what it says inside. And apologies if this takes a really long time or not, but I feel like the whole thing is worth reading because there's a lesson to this. At least a lesson for me, maybe for you, whatever you're trying to accomplish in your life, like, and even if you don't know of what you're trying to accomplish, like, do your best because life is really short. And I'll read this and I'll tell you why. It's a good article. It does him justice. It reads, "You wouldn't expect to find a story like Len Erickson's in a place called Univac. For Univac is very nearly synonymous with computerizing civilization and beyond to the moon. Machines, not men, are its business. Then along comes a guy like Len, an artist. In the personnel office, he was still carried as supervisor of industrial design, section, graphic group, but in reality, he lay incurably ill in a room on the 3rd floor of St. John's Hospital, where he died last Friday. And this is undated. Like, I don't know when he died. Then there's his wife Donna, and Lynn, 16, Mike, 14, Scott, 11, Mary Kay, 8, and Anita, 6. Until June, there was John, age 12. John was killed while riding his pony when a car struck them near the Ericksons' 40-acre Shangri-La, north of Scandia. In Univac plants throughout the Twin Cities, employees are taking their own time out from making computers to help a man and his family. Oddly, Len's talent as an artist of the outdoors is providing the key to this plan of raising money for his family, whose debts are astronomical now. 4 of Len's finest works, 2 oils and 2 watercolors, are being reproduced in 11 by 17 lithographs for sale. These will be shown along with several originals in a portable art exhibit, which will travel from Univac plant to plant and wherever it can be seen by the public. Len's close friend, teacher, and advisor, Les Kouba, one of America's most famous outdoor artists, will paint and donate an original to be sold at auction as a part of each showing. "It's strange," said Univac public relationsman Bob Tritz, one of those who suggested the Len Erickson exhibit, but Len was the last man at UNIVAC you ever thought would be the one to rouse this heartbeat among the people who fabricate the connectors and printed circuits. He had everything going for him just a year ago. Len and Donna met at a twerp dance in high school on St. Paul's East Side back in the 1950s. Len had that something it takes to be an artist. But when he was hired at UNIVAC, he was on an assembly line. The years he spent at the School of Associated Art, the commercial artistry he used during 4 years in the Navy, the encouragement that turned to amazement from Les Kouba paid off in a transfer to the UNIVAC art department. 4 years ago, Len and Donna bought their dream place north of Scandia, where he could create his own nature's wonderland for his painting. Erickson oils sold well. His job paid well. Everything was just about falling into place for Len Erickson when, one afternoon a year ago, he began to have what he thought were muscle or nerve spasms, and then just about everything began to go wrong. Last Christmas Eve, while the rest of the city and world was caught up in the joy and mirth of the holiday, doctors removed a malignant tumor from Len Erickson's brain. "They were going to do it the day before, but the doctor was snowbound," said Donna. "I don't think I'll ever be able to stand Christmas Eve again." There are a lot of other associations Donna Erickson will have difficulty making. When she thinks of Easter, she'll remember that Len was starting to walk, with help, feeding himself at the table, starting to discipline the children, playing his role as father. But Len's recovery was a false hope. When Donna remembers the promise of spring, she will remember how Len left the woods and pond and studio he loved for a bed in St. John's. The world of Len and Donna Erickson just sort of collapsed around them. Almost on the day she knew Len had a limited future, John was killed. "Why did that have to happen too?" she asked once. When she remembers summer, Donna will remember that bewildered face on a pillow, having to accept welfare money for groceries, even though Len still was on half-pay status. But driving through the summer's heat every day to St. John's, planning the hallway and staircase gallery of Len's paintings at home, as a memorial, Donna Erickson also remembers how a huge corporation wears its heart to show for a guy who once had all the pieces put together just right. And then it's signed Ollie, the Oliver Towne column in the St. Paul Dispatch. On the back it actually says, "All materials, time, and equipment donated to the Len Erickson Memorial Fund. Original wildlife by Les Kouba. Technical Services, Inc." Yada, yada, yada. The people that made the lithographs. And those 4 images that I have are those lithographs. I'm not sure who bought them. It really could have been my Grandma Ruby. My Grandma Ruby literally could have cut this out and put that in there because genealogy and mementos like this were important to my relatives. But the problem is a lot of them didn't write things down. Simply put, I knew my grandparents had stories and things like that, but as they got older, they stopped remembering them. And I kind of wish there was more about Len because he just seemed like this really meant something to him. I think he was trying to make paintings and make his whole living off of that. But sadly, it was cut short because life is like that. And it's hard for me to realize that at the age I'm at. But my my mortality, not my immortality, it starts to set in my life, and I have to start to wonder, what am I going to do? What is my ultimate purpose? It's crazy because when I was younger, I would have said without a shadow of a doubt, it's art. That's what I meant to do. And as time went on, I was living very hand to mouth. and I wanted better things for myself, and I didn't want to have to suffer and basically just kind of live in squalor. You know, he got a really good job and got a house. You know, those sort of things aren't as easily attainable as they once were. And that's really unfortunate, but I was able to find my way out of it, but I also sacrificed my art. And that's kind of where I'm thinking about these sort of things. You know, don't play small in your life. Do the things that you love. Live passionately. Live in the moment. Live every day like it's your last. And I'm probably going to get a little emotional about this, but it's just like I have such an affection and such a deep love affair with my art, and I just want to share it with so many people, anybody who cares, really, because I care a lot about it. This is really hard for me to admit. It's hard for me to do everything that I just said already, but this is really hard for me to admit because it's kind of against at least American cultural ethos because it's selfish. But one of the reasons I find art so fascinating, particularly painting and sculpture in the classical sense, is that they were made by people that are dead, potentially hundreds of years, some even thousands of years. And we remember what their names are, the ones that we have. And it's like they have a life outside of the mortal coil. And I won't say the majority reason of why I create art is to have this immortality, but I I think I do have a certain sense that I want at least some proof that I ever existed. I tried to find stuff about Len. I really did. And who knows? I might make this video and there might be living relatives of his that might tell me more. But even with the magic of the internet, I didn't find anything about him. I only found things about his mentor because he got to live a full life. I only really learned more about like the writer of this because he lived to be like 82. I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe that's a selfish thing to want to have some existence or leaving an impression on somebody that was born after you passed away. But it does mean something to somebody. I mean, this means a lot to me to know that there was somebody in my family that was an artist. There were other creative people in my family, but nobody painted like him, you know? Um, don't hide your talent under a bowl. Let your light shine because you never know when the light's going to go out. I think I'll leave it at that. And maybe I won't. This channel is called Breaking Patterns, and it's me documenting me breaking patterns that I find really hard to break. And there is a light at the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel, and I'm going straight towards it. With this YouTube channel, it's going to hold me accountable as long as I keep doing it. And I want to do all kinds of videos talking about like art history, me making art, ways that you can market yourself, which is something I learned outside of art school, and just journaling. Once in a while, I'll do videos like this where it's just a thought, a piece, but I started it with this, and I have a thing for Len. He seemed like a cool guy. He has just this huge smile. and hopefully you'll see that more on my face in the future. So here's to the future of this, and give me a follow, give me a subscribe, give me a like, ring the bell, whatever the heck you're even supposed to do on YouTube nowadays. I don't really care. I'm not doing it for the likes. I'm mostly doing it for me and just whatever the future can hold. I'm Calvin Whitehurst. This is Breaking Patterns.